Be truthful. Say your truth. That sounds very simple, right? But it's definitely not. I think our life experiences has shown that being truthful in a wrong moment can actually bring you closer to someone or blow up a relationship that's dear to your heart. Today we're talking about how to say what you mean in a way that actually works and that connects you more deeply to someone with a lot of courage, clarity, and you being authentic. No guilt, no drama, just truthfulness that lands in the right way. Without further ado, let's get into today's episode. I also want to tell you that I'm recording this from Orlando instead of Miami Beach. I am sitting in my hotel room, and you might know Orlando from all the amusements and entertainment parks. At least that's what I knew Orlando from. But we are not here for fun. My husband is attending a conference and I am with my dogs. We are traveling with him wherever he goes. So I'm working remote, as you or many of you know. So obviously I can take my work wherever we go. And today I decided I record a podcast. And this topic today, or the reason I'm doing this episode, is because this topic punched me in the face in real life this week before we head to our Orlando trip, basically. And I want to start off this podcast episode with basically the story why also this topic came or became now an episode. So I live in a building with a concierge desk right in front of the elevators. So if you ever come to visit me, you have to pass the concierge. They buzz you in, they help you, they chat, they are just great people. And I develop a relationship with some of them. Some of them are super friendly, super chatty. And I mean, I wouldn't call them necessarily my friends, but they are people I genuinely like, respect, and interact with really every day because I have to get out of my front door a couple of times a day because of my dog. So I develop naturally, organically, a relationship with them. And one of them is called Lisette. And she is a super lovely person. She's originally from Cuba. She's really sweet and I really appreciate her. And Lisette usually wears a short haircut. And why I'm stressing that is also the point of the story. So on Tuesday, before we went on the conference trip, I came downstairs expecting to see her because she always has the morning shift. So she starts at 7 and that is the time when I'm starting to do my dog walk. And so I came downstairs expecting to see her and greet her and have a little bit of chit chat. And instead I see someone with long, black, beautiful, dramatic curls sitting at the desk. Like big hair, like huge glam hair with tool presents, and I thought like, oh, they hired someone new. So I just walked by and suddenly I heard someone with a familiar voice saying, "Hey, hola, ¿cómo estás?" And that was Lisette's voice. And I was like, oh yeah, that face is familiar. It's Lisette. And my brain was really like, I felt like my brain was in slow motion, realizing that person with a complete different look is a person I know. I really also talk to every day. And I was like, what? And I was like, how did she go from a tiny short cut to full goddess locks overnight? And what I didn't know, that some women, they wear wigs. They change their wigs like they change pajamas or pants. And I was like, with my little European brain where wigs might not be as common as, I'd say, in the States, I'm still thinking like hair only grows out of scalps. So I go up to her and say, oh, I almost didn't recognize you. And she smiles and goes like, how do you like my hair? Well, okay, that's what I'm telling you now, okay? So my honest reaction when my brain wrapped around the fact that this is Lisette, she has just changed her hair, and then like, oh, it must have been a wig, I didn't like the hair. I felt like that short haircut with that brown hair color looked so great on her, and she wore absolutely the exact opposite hair. So I didn't like it at all. And my brain was still buffering. There was this lag between, my shock that, and to be honest, my shock wasn't about the hair. It was more about the contrast. So short pixie haircut to long goddess curls in less than 12 hours. Look, my neurons needed a moment. And I also knew instantly that my opinion here didn't actually matter for her day. So she was asking me, how do you like it? And okay, here's the thing. A few years ago, I would have said, oh my God, I like it. Yeah, it looks great. I would have lied. And then I would have ended the conversation, come back to myself, start my dog walk, and would hate myself for abandoning, for lying, for being not aligned with my values and not truthful. And I don't want to be that person anymore. I also don't want to be that person that says, I don't like it. Because I don't think that my subjective opinion, or you can call it truth, matters. Because what I say I don't like, some other people would genuinely feel it is the greatest haircut for her. And they appreciate that she's done that, and it's courageous, and it looks great on her. So I didn't want to lie. I'm really done lying. Because every time I pretended to like something, I walked away annoyed at myself. It does not feel great. I think you can relate. I think you can understand that if you tell something that is absolutely not the truth, that you will hate yourself afterwards. I also didn't want to say, hey, I hate it. That would just be unnecessary harm. So what I said in that moment where I'm just grappling with all the change and being directly pressured to give an answer, I said, oh, yeah, it looks different. How do you like it? So I said that it looks different, or it's different, which is the truth. It is as close to the truth as I felt it. And then I asked her how she felt about it. And she said like, yeah, I like it. And you know what? She told me that she likes wigs, that she switches them often, and she liked this one particularly, and all good. So there was no weirdness. I had no guilt hangover for me afterwards. It was no emotional bruise for her because I haven't been unfiltered honest with her. And afterwards, as I was walking my dogs, I thought, wow, speaking your truth can harm someone. But not speaking your truth can harm you. So what's the right thing to do? Where is the line? Where's the silver lining here? And that's when I realized if I'm struggling with this, you probably are too. Which brings me to today's episode and the real question. Have you ever told someone the truth? Like someone asked you about an honest feedback, and you said your truth, your subjective opinion, and instantly felt the whole energy shifted? Have you ever had that situation? I hope I'm not alone here with this. Like, you say something honest and suddenly you're wondering, did I hurt them? Should I have said it differently? Was it even the right truth to share? Was it the right timing? Like all those questions. So what I want to address today in this episode is how to tell the truth without abandoning yourself, and especially without breaking the connection with the other person. So those tiny moments feel huge. Not because the topic is big, but because the truth telling is never just information. It's a full body relational event, as I call it. Because your system goes into threat assessment mode. If you are about to share your truth, which is a subjective opinion, you wonder, will they be upset with me? Will they pull away? Will this blow up the relationship? And the person that you have this conversation with, their nervous system is scanning too. Not only you, they are too. They're like, am I safe with you? Are you judging me? Are we still good? So even an innocent comment about someone's haircut becomes a micro kind of negotiation of trust, of belonging, and especially about emotional safety. And that is why I feel, at least, truth feels really complicated. And that's why today we are diving into this, because most adults never get that taught. And I feel like this is crazy. We really, really need to be truthful. But how to tell the truth without being an asshole? Or without abandoning yourself because you say something that is actually not at all what you feel? So this episode is not about honesty in a moral sense. It is way more about the discernment. It's about relational intelligence, because I also feel like relational intelligence is not something that, first of all, people get taught. At least I never got taught it, and something people really lack. And it's also about knowing which truth belongs in which moment. And when I did the research, I learned so much that I want to really share with you, in the hopes that that is useful, not only information, but useful piece to double down on your emotional and relational intelligence, and that you are being a truth teller that can discern, has boundaries, and is absolutely compassionate in the process. So that was a very long intro, so let's get just into it. So when I started doing the research about today's episode, I was really thinking, how did I get taught being honest, and what is moral, and what I was taught in kindergarten. Like, I got taught very early on that lying is bad and honesty is good. That is the equation, a very simple equation that I think most of us got taught very early on. I call it kindergarten morality, because that is actually what we learned when we're in that age. But you know what? Adult relationships, I feel, are way more complicated than, when we were children. And our adult relationships, they don't run on kindergarten rules. They are way more nuanced, as you already have experienced with plenty of decades around the sun. In real life, telling the truth, that is not just a single decision. It's a choice between different kinds of truth. And each kind of different truth that we will dive into in a few moments, holds a very different job, a different weight, and has absolutely a different impact. So there is, I said it a couple of times already, different truths. So there is the objective truth. There's also the subjective truth. There is the relational truth, contextual truth, and practical truth. And I know there's a lot to digest today, a lot of information I'm throwing at you, but I feel like it is so important to lay this all out, and it's actually way more simple than it sounds like, and I think it will serve you really well in life. So depending on kind of the moment, one truth might serve connection, while another truth in the wrong moment will completely obliterate it, destroy it. And I have been there. I have thrown so many truth bombs at people that I've blew up relationships, friendships. I have been hurtful. I hurt people. I got hurt by people with that. But I'm not now talking about other people. I'm talking about what I have not done right. So I have thought, once I came off my good girl era, where I stopped pleasing, where I stopped manipulating and being the nice girl, I have been oscillating from being an absolute pleasing, natured, kind-tempered, nice girl to, let's call it more or less a bit of an asshole, because I was like, the truth, that is what matters. But I didn't know there were nuances to truth, and that there are the wrong context, the wrong timing, and also sometimes the person not being the most resourceful to hold what I had to say. Sometimes being brutally honest breaks the trust between you and someone else. And the timing determines whether your truth can start a healing journey, a healing process between you and the other person, or it is a harmful weapon. And the truth, on the other hand, that supports the relationship is not the same as the truth that satisfies your ego. So there are also differences. And the most helpful truth is not always the most accurate, but the most grounding one. Because honesty isn't one thing. Now let's get into it. Being a grown adult means learning how to choose the right truth for the moment. The truth that serves the situation, the relationship, and also yourself. And I was never taught this. And I grew up thinking honesty was black and white. Like, the lie is the bad cop and truth is the good cop. Simple, clean, done, right? And then I grew up and saw that being an adult is actually very messy, full of nuances, and very relational. And that's why I feel so many conflicts between people explode often out of nowhere. And that's not because we are failing at honesty. I think we are failing at truth with the big portion of discernment. And discernment is one of my most favorite words because I feel when it comes to human relationships, discernment is such a key feature in one's life. I am so after discerning the situations, people, the context, and making sure I know what I'm doing. So let's break it down. And that's where it gets a little bit technical in the podcast, but I promise it will get easier. But I have to tell you about the 5 truths that I've just mentioned before, because knowing this is the key is the key to saying what's real without causing unnecessary harm. And my mission is really in my own personal life and for this podcast to help us all be really kind, compassionate people and steering away from unnecessary harm. We can hurt other people unknowingly, and that is okay because that happens to me so often. But there is also a way how we can avoid it easily. But let's go into the 5 types of truth. Let's get that just behind us. So first of all, there is the objective truth. An example would be, you said you'd be here at 6 and it's now 6:45. So this is objectively, this is objective truth. This is a very neutral fact. There are no emotion, there is no interpretation. If we both agree to meet at 6 and you get to that meeting point at 6:45, well, that is a fact. Then there is a subjective truth. I, for example, could say, I feel anxious when we agreed to meet at 6 and it's now 6:45. And I'm waiting for you for 45 minutes. That is true for me, but it's not universally. So that I feel anxious by waiting 45 minutes, well, that's something very subjective. It might make me anxious, someone else wouldn't care, someone else would be angry. So you kind of understand. So that is very much subjective. Or maybe a better example would be, I feel anxious when plans change last minute. Because there are people who are very spontaneous, who don't mind like sudden plans of change. But yeah, I do. So that's a subjective truth. Then there is the relational truth. I can also say, for example, when you cancel last minute, I feel unimportant. Could we communicate earlier than just 5 minutes before we are due to meet? So this truth serves connection and clarity. I can say, hey, if you do this, it makes me feel XYZ, and can we just be better at communicating? Can we not cancel last minute? So that gives a lot of clarity, and it serves the connection between you and me. The contextual truth, on the other hand, is more depending on timing, mood, and capacity. For example, if you have a fight with someone and the person wants to clarify, they want to stop fighting, but you feel like you need more time to digest what has just been said and you're very emotional, you would say, I can't talk right now, I'm overwhelmed. Can we talk in 5 minutes? Can we talk in an hour? I just need a minute. And that is a contextual truth. So that really depends on timing, mood, and capacity. And then there's the practical truth, where the truth actually helps someone in the moment. For example, you don't have to fix everything today, just start with the first step. That's something, a very practical truth. And the most common truths are the objective truth, the subjective one, and I'd say also the relational one and the contextual one. And where things get messy is that I feel like most interpersonal conflicts don't come from what you say, they come from the category you pretend it belongs to. So we often take a subjective truth, which is more our personal taste or an opinion, and kind of deliver this as if it was an objective, universal fact. And here's where it gets so dicey. Because an objective truth is something, okay, there is day and night. There is a sun, there is a moon. We can all see that. We can all agree to this. But a personal taste, me not liking a hairstyle, like the hairstyle of Lisette, that is subjective. That is nowhere written that this is the wrong hairstyle or an kind of not very tasteful hairstyle. Not at all. As I said in the intro, some people would love it, some people don't. And with the subjective truth, that's when the other person basically, feels judged or attacked or also dismissed. And suddenly, a very simple comment that you found is your truth blows up into a full-blown conflict. So I feel like understanding these categories it's not just plain theory, even though it's a lot of information, but it's like survival skills for relationships. Because there are moments when the truth is kind of wrong. But not in the sense, when I say the truth is wrong, it feels like absolutely horrible to say, because we've been really conditioned that the truth is always right. So when I say truth can be wrong, I don't mean in the sense that the fact itself changes. It's more about how and when it is delivered, and whether it actually serves anyone. And I think that is so important, because not everything I say, not every opinion of mine, not every judgment, or in that matter, subjective truth, really serves anyone. There are moments where it does, and there are moments where it doesn't. Think of this truth like this. Truth exists in multiple layers. As I said before, objective, subjective, relational, contextual, practical. Saying a technical truth statement can still be wrong. And I also grounded this now in a few examples so that I feel like I can better explain what I mean when I say the truth can be wrong. So I categorize that truth can be wrong when it does more harm than good. If, for example, your significant other comes home at 11 p.m. after a really hard working day, and you come at him or her and say, "You never help around the house. I have to do all the housework." Is the moment really the best? Is it the most accurate moment to say that to your partner at 11 p.m.? I don't think so. It's the right moment for a conflict, for a meltdown of your partner saying, "I just came home, it's 11 p.m. and you come at me that I don't contribute to the household chores." I don't think it's the right timing. Another thing where truth is not the right thing to say is if it's about something the person cannot change right now. For example, me telling Lisette that her hairstyle sucks, that I don't like it. Well, is she able to change it right away? Does it even matter if it comes from me? No, not at all. If you tell your coworker, "Oh gosh, you look tired today," and they are about to walk into a big meeting and hold a presentation, I don't think that you telling them that they are tired is helpful. Also, truth can be harmful or wrong when the timing is simply wrong. So, and it's a good example as I brought up before, when I mentioned that your partner comes home at 11 p.m. and you want to talk about how your household chores are split and that you feel like you do more as your partner. 11 p.m. when someone just come home from work and is clearly tired and drained, I think that is the wrong timing. My husband comes home at 11 p.m. and I would come up with something like that, I don't think he would be open to have this conversation. And now let's turn our focus to when truth is really the best. So truth is good when someone, let's say a coworker, is asking for an honest feedback and you know they are in the right headspace to handle it. So truth lands just better when the person is ready to hear it. If it's unsolicited, it can backfire or it can feel like an attack, no matter how accurate your feedback, that truth that you are sharing, delivering is. So if someone says to you, "Hey, tell me the truth, how do I sound in this speech?" and you can see that person is really genuine and really wants to hear from you what you think, they want to improve, they want to grow, that is perfect. There's no holding back. It's really about, your speech sounds less like you. I think if you bring in more personal storytelling, that would be a speech that is improved or feel like that is really authentic and really yours. I think that is really great when you can be so honest and share that. But I feel like it's also when the other person is, as I said before, in the right headspace. And the truth can be super useful if when you share it, someone can act on it. For example, good truth gives someone something to do, change, or also learn from. And if you share something that someone just can't change right now, it just adds tension or it just hurts the other person. For example, when I told you in the intro about Lisette's change of wigs, she wouldn't be able to change the wig right away, even if she wanted to, based on what I shared. But, she couldn't. And again, I felt like whatever my preference or taste wasn't mine to share, and it was the right moment and also absolutely not important for me to share. It's also great to share the truth when you focus on someone's behavior and not their identity. For example, when you address something that someone did, but not necessarily who they are. So feedback about action protects the relationship, but feedback about character, gosh, that will trigger defensiveness and unnecessary conflict. For example, something that you can say is, in that matter, you missed the deadline. That is where you point out that someone was missing action and not, stuck to a timeline, to a deadline, to something agreed. And you're not saying you are lazy. you're a lazy person or you're not diligent enough. That would be more where you share, let's say, if you use that, you share a truth about their identity if you call someone lazy because they missed a deadline. But that will make them feel terrible. It's also not nice and absolutely not okay to say that. So focus on the behavior, not identity. That is also something I live by. And it's so helpful because the other person feels so much less criticized or judged when you focus on what they did or did not do, rather than label their character or kind of assassinate their character by saying, you're lazy or you're not to be trusted. That's not okay. Rather focus on the behavior. And then also share your truth when it's rooted in care and not in frustration. Because when you share a truth, your motive matters. Truth shared from your irritation, from anger or ego is always heard and perceived as criticism. But when you share truth from care, from genuine interest for the person to be better, to grow, and you know that is also something that will be good for them, then that is mostly accepted and more taken as guidance, mentoring, or support, and not criticism. For example, I'm sharing this with you because I want us to understand each other better, not because I'm mad. That would be something where my intention, my motive comes from grounded care and not because I'm frustrated. And here's the bridge back to discernment, something that I said that I so love because I feel like discernment is something that we all have to practice more and more. Because there's a pattern, if you have noticed already. As I said, truth isn't about the what you say. It's not necessarily also the words. It's more about your why, the how you deliver it, and when you say it. So it's more about why, how, and when, and not so much about what. And that is where the real skill lives. Because being honest doesn't automatically makes you look good or will make the situation better. The key is knowing how to hold your truth in a way that serves both you, the other, and the relationship. And that's where truth discernment comes in. So I came up with 3 questions that you can ask yourself to practice the discernment when it comes to truth sharing. First of all, first question is, what kind of truth is this? Is this subjective? Is this objective, relational, practical? As we said before, these 5 truths, so to say, or contextual truth. The second question, is this truth helpful right now? For example, with me with the haircut and Lisette, is it helpful to share that I don't like it? Because I also thought that maybe in a few days when I get used to it, I kind of like it. Have you ever had that you saw something and then you didn't like it and then you saw it more and more and more and suddenly you loved it? That is what we humans are. We change, we grow, we evolve. So be careful when, how, and why you are sharing your truth. Because I would have never wanted to tell Lisette my first gut reaction because it was a reaction and not necessarily the truth. And the third question is, what is the most, and I love that one, what is the most compassionate version of this truth? I think that is a very fair question. And of all these questions, I like this the most because compassionate version of a truth is never harsh. It's never unreflected. It never comes from anger, irritation, or from ego. Let's just call it as it is. And truth is not bravery. You know what truth really needs? It needs a few other components. It needs your courage because, speaking your truth in the right moment with the right intention takes courage. The timing. The timing is so important in that matter. Timing is often everything. And then also the awareness to the impact your truth will have on the other person. I think that is also something super, super important. And I'm not here to say we need to manage other people's feelings. I always tell my clients, the other person that you have a conflict with, or you fear to have a conflict with, or might not take the truth in a good way, that person is an adult. Treat them as such. Don't treat them as a child that cannot handle your compassionate truth. So brutal honesty is never brave. It's just disguised brutality in my eyes. And I also want to say that your truth is real for you. It is valid, but it's also not automatically a universal truth. And I think if we can discern the two, subjective versus objective, that already brings you closer to the truth in a very compassionate way. Timing and delivery matters as much as words themselves, obviously. So I think that is super, super, super important, because the tone, how you say it, wow, that can change everything. And, sometimes the truest thing you can say is simply a question. Because when Lisette asked me, out of a sudden, like I wasn't expecting it, how I liked her new hairstyle, I said two things. First, I said, it's different, because that was the closest to the truth that I could utter in that moment. And I asked a question back. How do you feel about it? How do you like it? And I think if you don't know if it's the right timing to say the truth, or if they can hold it, if they're in the right headspace, as I said before, or maybe you just don't have the right intentions, just ask a question back. Let them share how they feel about something or what they think about something, because then it's easier for you to navigate that. And yeah, I want you to speak the truth that really matters. And I want you to say that with courage, with a lot of clarity, and the most compassion that you can kind of bring up in that moment. And that will protect your integrity. That will also protect your relationships. And your honesty will build connection and not breed conflict. That is all I wanted to share with you. So thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope that this particular episode gives you a lot, or a little more confidence at least, to navigate truth and honesty in your life without necessarily hurting anyone or yourself, or cause resentment, maybe shame and guilt. So because abandoning ourselves and being not truthful can really backfire. So if today's episode resonated with you, please take a moment to reflect. When was the last time your truth helped, and when was the last time it harmed? I think you have a lot of examples. I have a lot. And if you want to share them with me, DM me on Instagram or comment on this episode. I love to hear from you. And please remember, being honest doesn't mean saying everything you think. It really means saying what's worth saying. And that with courage, clarity, and compassion. I have to emphasize this. I know I'm repeating myself multiple times in my podcast, but I really want this message to land. And sometimes we have to say it more often in order for people to remember. So again, if you loved this episode, please share it with someone who maybe needs a little truth with discernment in their life. And I'll see you next week on the I Do Me podcast. Take care, and thanks for tuning in. Bye.